Monica. Thank you so much for joining SheLeads today. I am so excited to have you on the show, so thank you.
Absolutely excited to be here.
Yeah, so, okay, Monica, you are the head of innovative technologies for education at Facebook, where, from my understanding, you have built these strategic relationships and developed these relationships among AR, VR, and then the education industry. So you really are integrating technology to transform the education space. Before Facebook, you also worked at Amazon as a content developer. And so I'm just excited to hear your story. But what I love to do is just start off with take me back to when you were my age, 22 years old, graduating from college. So you went to Bowdoin with a degree in math. So at this stage in your life, what did you imagine your career like? What were you asking yourself? How did you navigate your career?
So I actually love this question sitting where I am right now and then looking back, because at the time I really was pretty sure there was just this one path. And I wasn't entirely sure what it was. I was really lucky in the sense that when I was a senior in college, it was a time when all these big consulting firms are coming and just plucking math majors out to come work for them. And so I got a call and an offer from Deloitte. It was November of my senior year of college. And they were like, hey, do you want to be an actuary in Manhattan? And I was like, I do not know what an actuary is, and I've never lived in Manhattan. I was like, absolutely, let's do it. I mean, I just kind of always had this desire to learn more and be curious. So for me, it felt like a great opportunity professionally, but selfishly, it's because they offered this to me in November, my senior year. It wasn't going to start until I graduated in the summer. And so I just saw this great opportunity to finish school early. I already had enough credits, take the time to travel, not pay a semester of tuition. And so I said yes. And I got to leave school early and just take this awesome adventure in life and have that time, knowing that I had a job lined up, but could take this time to travel and just explore. And so that was wonderful. And then that summer I got to start. I moved to Manhattan. My sister was there as well. So it's fun to be in the same place that she was and learned what an actuary was finally. Really just got to make a lot of mathematical models to analyze data for insurance companies. And so it was a learning curve. It was fun. I loved living in Manhattan. Got to wear suits every day. It was just like everything was new, a new beginning, bright and shiny. And then I remember my third year there, someone came and said, hey, we're going to be part of this corporate outreach program. We would like you to go into the public schools in Manhattan and just talk about the importance of staying in school, interact with the students, let them know what you do, maybe teach them a little bit of math or something fun. And so I said, okay, why not? I mean, I never really thought about being on the other side. I loved being a student, but I never really thought about being the one who was actually talking to them. So again, as an opportunity just to get out of the cubicle, just to do something different, I agreed. And I loved talking to the students. I found that there was just a lot of fun energy in the conversations that we had. But I do remember leaving that school and feeling kind of sad. I was like, it didn't feel like there was a whole lot of teaching and learning going on in that particular school or in the environment. And so it just got me thinking about what was it that got me excited to learn? And I'm pretty sure it's when we brought technology into the classroom and suddenly everything came alive. We could model nature. We could model the orbits of the planets and the topography of mountains. And I think it finally clicked that we were just using math as a language to model nature. And so that's when I got hooked. And this was at a time where we weren't really using a lot of technology to teach, except maybe at the college level. So I was like, why aren't we bringing this down to younger students? It seems like it would be a really great way to help people visualize, to learn a little bit differently, just to shake things up and hopefully get more people curious and to learn through exploration. So then out of my own curiosity, I decided to go and explore a lot of other schools. So I asked if I could volunteer. I asked if I could just go observe and found that they were all kind of largely the same. And I think it's the first time in my life where I felt like I actually wanted to be part of the solution, that I kind of understood how we could possibly build a solution. And I think it was that weird shift of I started my career doing what I could do, was good at, and aligned with a job into, wait a minute, I feel like I want to do something that aligns what I'm good at with a purpose. And so that was just kind of, ruminating in the back of my mind. I didn't really make any kind of move, but then 9/11 happened and our office is right across the street from the World Trade Center. So we lost all our windows. We had to move down the street. And every time we stood up to, go to a meeting, we were just watching debris being dragged out of ground zero. And everything in New York changed. New York was just sad and hurting. And it just made me really think about what I wanted my next step to be and how I was going to be purposeful about that. And I kind of I knew all along that it was time to make that change. And so I applied to graduate school, was able to go get a master's at Harvard in education, where I just really focused on developing new curriculum with technology and understanding how we could help start to kind of move the trajectory of how we teach and how we learn and what that looked like. Wow. And then I got to teach for 10 awesome years. I taught math, and then I taught astronomy. And every night I would just spend hours trying to create lessons that were visually rich and engaging and tied the real world to what we were doing. And eventually someone's like, you have to do this on a bigger scale, right? And so although I loved actually working with students, I did start to get a lot of signal that, like, if you could do this on a bigger scale, you could reach a lot more people. And so what does it look like to build solutions at scale that could really transform the way that we teach universally? And so that's when I was like, all right, well, let me just see what's out there. And I was able to get the job at Amazon, which again was sort of this big, scary choice. We were living on the East Coast, surrounded by family and grandparents, and then just picked up all the pieces, moved to California for this opportunity, and kind of threw the pieces off a cliff to see where they would land. But Silicon Valley was exciting. It's just this fertile ground for innovation, and just surrounded by people who are like-minded and brilliant and want to also create change with technology and do things for good. And so I did really love the environment. And at first at Amazon, it was one of those things where I think we were trying to do something at scale, but it almost felt more like putting PDFs online, right? Like we weren't quite getting to that space where we were building something different. And so we worked really hard on asking those hard questions. It's like, what do we do? How do we actually get kids to interact and build their own learning blocks through some of this exploration? So we were able to create these labs that were a little bit more interactive and kind of opened up visualization and exploration that way, which was really fun to work on.
Wow.
And then moved over to Facebook. And it's funny, though, when I first started at Facebook, it was to do something entirely different than what I'm currently doing. But it's just, again, one of those things where you go into a new space, and I started looking around, and I just started to see all these different opportunities. I was like, wait a minute, we're building these technologies that, although they're not for education, they actually hold really powerful solutions. And I'll never forget the time, it was like my second week there, someone gave me a demonstration of VR, and the second I put that headset on, I was like, oh my God, this is the medium we need to transform the way that we teach and learn. And so I started looking around, and we were building solutions in AI with bots to help give information. We were looking at ways to visualize in 3D. We were looking at all these different things that I was like, these offer really tremendous, powerful things. And so I started thinking about really these questions of, one, like, what can we actually do to help change the way that we teach and learn, but also, like, what is our responsibility as a company? Yeah. And I think I'm looking at the way that we have to build these newer technologies and recognizing that no one teaches those in college. No one really teaches them in high school. A couple lucky students get it, but for the most part, like, this is where the technology is going and the future is headed. And very few people have the skills to actually succeed in them. Yeah. Yet the longer we go, there's this giant skills gap and market gap where now just in this year alone, there are 1 million jobs that are unfulfilled in the AR, VR industry, because that, I think just across the board, more and more industries want to use it. And there's just not the talent to fulfill those jobs. So it started making me think, like, I think we have this responsibility to make sure that we're not only creating content and solutions and hardware, but we're also helping the next generation truly become skilled at how to create with these technologies, because every generation has different problems to solve. And I just want to make sure everyone has the tools to solve them the best that they can and to keep going with this technology as it ramps up.
Yeah. Wow. I love it. I think it's such a great story. And I can honestly take this in so many directions and questions. But one thing that I learned from this answer is the idea, I could really tell the type of person you are in that your curiosity really drives you. Where someone brings some opportunity, you're the type of person to say, yes, let me explore. Like, who knows what will happen? So I love that. And so still going back, I want to know, was there anyone telling you, no, stay at Deloitte or stay in this secure job where you're making a good pay and, you have the security versus going to explore education and teaching? Did anyone ever say, like, maybe just stay and don't explore?
No, I was, I had such a tremendous advantage growing up where my parents really never instilled that notion that
Okay.
like you have to do one thing and follow the career ladder. It's
Yeah.
kind of like do what you love, make sure that you're happy, be with who you love. Like they really just had this sort of way about them that was like you have to make yourself feel like you're leading with purpose first and then the rest will kind of follow. And so I never felt the pressure from them. Even growing up, I was a really good student. I would stay up till 4 a.m. trying to study and make sure I knew everything. They never, ever told me to do my homework. Like it just kind of came from me somehow. But this notion to always make sure that you're bringing in the creativity and the artistic side and making sure that you're doing what makes sense to you in life, I think was instilled from a very young age.
Yeah.
And I think that whole curiosity part was definitely, my dad was just extremely inventive and curious growing up. And so we watched him do a lot of fun things. And every time our car broke, he would open up the hood and fix everything and we'd watch and learn about it. And he was just a kind of always excited to learn and to bring us along with him. And so I think that's where some of that got planted. And also just, I just remember we went to summer camp. Actually, it was like a school-wide camp we had to go to in 5th grade. And one of the activities there was you had to get a piece of paper and an egg. And we had to make a bridge that would hold the egg without breaking. And the only one that worked, and none of us got this right, was when you actually roll the paper up. Because if you don't have any corners, there's no weak spot. So it makes a better, stronger structure. And so that was interesting. It kind of stuck with me. But then fast forward to, it was like ancient history in high school. And we had to create anything we wanted for this project. So I told my dad, I was like, I think I want to make an aqueduct, right? And he's like, great. So he goes down to the basement. He cuts up a million tiny little like half-inch by half-inch cubes and brings them up. And we spent the next week gluing all these together, making a beautiful Roman aqueduct with all the arches and everything. And so I go in and I go to the class and I present this. And someone raised their hand. They're like, why did they use arches? And I was like, do you guys remember back to that camp in 5th grade when we had to do that experiment with the paper and the egg, and the only thing that worked was this, like the round one, because there were no corners to make it weak. So I started explaining why the mechanics of it worked from that example. And afterwards, my teacher just looked at me and he's like, you are going to make the best teacher one day. And I just remember like almost feeling offended. So I was like, oh no, I'm going to be a pediatrician or an astronaut. Like teaching was never, ever something I thought I wanted to do. But those little moments were like, that project that we did, how it kind of threaded it through to something that my dad helped me work on. And all these things that kind of keep building up these building blocks of curiosity and exploration that you get throughout your childhood. And just feel so fortunate that curiosity was such a backbone of how I interacted at home and at school.
Definitely. Yeah, it seems like you have, since a very, very young age, you've had that innovative spirit that your dad instilled, and I love that. I think that's so great.
Yeah.
So
nothing was safe. I took everything apart. As soon as something broke, I was like, great, let me see how that works.
Amazing. So it's crazy how you were only introduced to almost the education sector once you were at Deloitte, and then you kind of just took it and ran with it, got a master's in education from Harvard, and taught for 10 years. So you mentioned how someone said, okay, it's time that you take this to a much bigger scale. And then that's where Amazon came into the picture. So from the outside perspective, I didn't even know Amazon and Facebook had these like sectors just for education. So at this moment, did you ever question, or did you know as well? Like, did you question how can Amazon help me through education? Like, how can Amazon make this a bigger scale? Because obviously a huge company, but in terms of education, like, did you have those questions, or how did that happen?
Well, I think the way I saw it, and trust me, every time I go anywhere and speak publicly, everyone's like, wait, what? Facebook has something for education? Never heard of it. So we get that question a lot. And I think what always grounded me was the fact that education's been a broken system for a very long time, right? And it really hasn't changed in a very long time. And I still look at the way my kids are learning, and it's like exactly the way I learned, right? And so technology has changed, the world has changed, the way that we get information has changed, yet schools are having a very hard time keeping up. And so the way that I saw it was these tech companies have an opportunity to innovate for education because they're not ed tech companies, right? And so there are a lot of ed tech companies that are very much grounded in the traditional way of teaching, and they have a lot of success and it's worked. But I think sometimes solutions come from the most unlikely places. And I think that's where I saw Amazon and Facebook being able to come in. And again, not ed tech companies, won't ever be probably, but there's this notion that there are solutions in all these different pockets that could potentially help really transform the way that we teach and learn.
Yeah.
Maybe not just in the traditional school setting, but we're kind of learning on this continuum now in life, and everything doesn't just happen at university and school.
Mm-hmm.
When people are curious after they get out of university, they want to learn how to code, they want to learn a new language, they go to YouTube. And it's probably the best way to learn online that you could ever imagine. You just search it and suddenly get the information. And so what does that mean about the way that we're actually getting information? And how do we help students of all ages recognize that the information is out there, taking some responsibility of how we learn it and how we want to hear that information disseminated? I think it's a really fascinating problem that we get to figure out. But then also, if the big tech companies are building the newest, latest hardware and software and technology, we need to make sure that we are keeping those students up with the pace, or they're just going to fall further and further behind. And so that's where I see not wanting to lose that, kind of that pace that we're in with the tech companies, even if we're not, like delivering content directly to, high school classrooms, that we have opportunities for those students to get really skilled in these technologies, and that we also provide ways for them to visualize and learn things with these technologies too. So I look at virtual reality, for instance, and again, it's not widely adopted yet, but the way that you can learn differently through exploration is just so powerful. You can play with scale and explore inside the human body or go out into space. You can play with time travel. But most importantly, you can actually walk in someone else's shoes and understand what it's like to be a different age, race, gender. I mean, all these things are just these new powerful ways that we actually can help people learn and understand the world better, which I find thrilling. And so I don't want it to just live out in another sector. I want to make sure that we are building the bridges between what's being built in the tech industry and how it can actually help to serve those in an education space.
Yes, I love that.
That's kind of how I saw it.
I think that's a great outlook to have. I think that's very important. And almost when you mentioned how these tech companies, they're not in the ed tech space, but they're using their influence to be able to impact the ed tech space. And it's almost like you can draw many parallels to that, but one that comes to mind is just like these celebrities, or Megan Rapinoe, famous soccer player, best women's player in the world. She's using her platform to voice drive for change and things like that. So I think that's definitely applicable. So
I think that the other really interesting thing that's happening now is because of COVID-19, right? I mean, these are all circumstances that none of us ever could have planned for, but suddenly we're recognizing that we actually have this tremendous ability to help, that we have the reach, we have the ability to help people learn online and gather online and connect to each other and continue to keep these learning communities that they were all in. I mean, until you're out of college, you learn in a community, you learn in a group, right? And so now that you can no longer physically be together, how do we use our tools? And Facebook is so well positioned that to make sure that we're continuing to allow people to learn together, to learn from each other, to get information from varying points of view from each other. And so all of that is one of those things that, as much as I absolutely hate the situation that we're in right now, I think it might actually help us accelerate some of these solutions that the education industry is probably needed for quite some time, but hasn't really been able to pause and to solve for. I mean, I keep thinking, if we had known this was coming 10 years ago, what would we have built? What would we have built to prepare for it? Which is just kind of a fun thing to think about. But here we are. And, as humans, we're so creative and innovative. And I know that we can move really quickly, and it's forcing us to accelerate those changes.
Yeah. So tell me a little bit more. When you went to Facebook, you mentioned you weren't going into the education space, from my understanding. So what were you going into Facebook for, and when did that transition to becoming the head of innovative technologies for education at Facebook?
It actually wasn't the education space. It was just for a very different project. At the time, Facebook had acquired a company that was trying to help with personalized learning. And so they agreed to help with the engineering part, and they needed partnerships to come in and help grow that. But in true form, Facebook recognized that this was something they wanted to always make free. And so they felt it was important to live under the philanthropic arm. And so that is the Chan Zuckerberg Initiative. And so that project very quickly ended up moving over to a place where it could live in the philanthropic branch and continue to be free forever. If it had stayed under Facebook, it probably would not have been able to stay that way, just the way that the companies are set up. And so as that started to transition, many people went over with it. And that's kind of when I started to look around and see, all right, what other opportunities are here and what can we actually build with what's going on? And that's kind of when the pieces came together. I was like, wait a minute, look at all this stuff that we can do and all these opportunities we have. And luckily, Facebook's one of those places where you do get to figure out what kind of projects you want to work with and what kind of drive you want to have. And you get to sprint full force ahead to most of those. And the company will kind of support by helping to lift roadblocks as you go forward with it. And so it's just been one of those really incredible experiences where you do get to visualize, understand, and kind of think in the future of how we can actually use these and then just really start to drive it and pick up momentum with it.
Yeah, incredible. So I love asking my guests almost the idea of failure. And so we've talked about it a lot, and there's one thing I've really learned is that failure is almost this mental model, and you just build this muscle almost to understand, okay, this is a learning opportunity. It's not something where you have to kind of eat yourself internally, but no, this is a learning opportunity. Move on, and then you implement it in your next task or goal. So I want to know, what is your idea of failure? And more so, have you had any moments in your life where you've been down and you've had to get out of it and you've learned a great lesson from it?
Yeah, I mean, I think failure happens all the time. It's almost like always happening on a micro level, right? Because we're constantly like, you can't move forward unless you sort of adjust a little bit. So I think of everything as like the staircase, right? Where it's like you make a little jump up and then you try things out, you iterate, you might fail, you might go back a little bit. It's okay. You kind of just land on the step that you just came from. So like you don't fall too far back if you're constantly in that zone of like, it might work, it might not, let me try things out. And if it does, then I take that next step up. And so it's this notion that I think you can't really move forward unless you also understand what doesn't work, unless you kind of learn from things that don't go quite as well as you want them to. I mean, I think certainly we've all landed in, I've clearly had a meandering career path. And a lot of those decisions were made either because big life moments changed things or just because I was like, I think I might have chosen wrong. This doesn't quite line up with what I think I need to do. And what does that mean? And there's this feeling inside you. I almost kind of equated to like when Mary Poppins, like when the wind changes, it's time to move on. Like there are those moments where like you feel the wind change inside you and you're like, what is that telling me? And so I think one of the hard things, especially growing up as a female, you put a lot of pressure on yourself to please and to do things right. And unfortunately, failure felt very embarrassing. And I think one of the hardest things I had to recognize is that there is sort of this play of emotions and they're both actually intertwined, right? Like you have to feel scared before you can feel brave. And you have to feel like there are all these things where it's like you have to feel very nervous before you do something big or important or give a talk or take a test. But it's actually just adrenaline that's about to come out and probably be used for the right reasons. Yeah. And so it took me a long time to be able to recognize what some of those uncomfortable feelings were and recognize that they go hand in hand with the feelings I wanted to get to, or the performance that I wanted to be able to have. And I imagine for, if somebody's on stage a lot or performing like a soccer player, like I imagine that those are amplified even greater because it's just such high stakes, but a necessary part to understanding that some of those moments are actually exactly what you need in order to do something great. Yeah. So yeah, I think for me, it's definitely, it took a while to get there for sure. And I'm still working on it. I mean, I think the other thing that I recognize to help with that feeling of like, oh, I failed and I'm stuck is that, like in life, you never reach an ending point. I think we all kind of thought like, oh, once I get to this level in this career, then I coast and I'm done. But like, no, you're a constant work in progress. You're constantly evolving and growing and learning new things and shifting and becoming, right? Whatever that is, like you're constantly going into that phase. And so knowing that like failures aren't dead ends, they don't set you back. It's just like either another direction to change your focus or another way that you're just growing into something that you're trying to become. Yeah. So those are all things. And of course, throughout your whole life, you still have to remind yourself of those, right? Yeah, that instant reaction is generally embarrassment or to feel all the things that we typically feel when failure occurs, but then to quickly turn that around identify what it is and then use it towards this motion of like, it's okay, because this is actually really beneficial that it happened. It's going to make me think differently. It's going to make me come up with better solutions. It's going to make me reach out to someone who can maybe point me in another way. And it just ultimately is usually one of the best things that can happen. So there are people that call them happy accidents, right? I studied a lot of astronomy and absolutely love space. I went to space camp twice as a kid. Like all that, the unknown just really, I think, fascinates me anyway. But, this notion of happy accidents in the way that like, our solar system formed, our Earth actually has life on it, and all these things that weren't really supposed to happen, but here they are, and thank God for it, So
no, that's
how I think about them.
I think that's so great, and I've actually never heard. I love the part when you said when you get these feelings of nerves before, and you have to recognize that this is a good thing because then something big will happen and something great will happen. So it's almost like it's just changing your mindset about how you interpret the feelings that you're feeling and like really tapping into that. Because that's definitely true. As a soccer player for all of Stanford and way before that, like you get nerves before everything. But it's almost like
Absolutely.
I remember someone said, when you stop getting nervous, it means you stop caring. So I think that's definitely a big.
I love that.
So like it shows that you are passionate about it because you're still like you get nervous for it. So I think that's so great.
And I'll constantly be preparing. I remember there's like a physics 101 professor at MIT who, was phenomenal. And one of his tricks he said was, I wake up every morning at 4 a.m. and I rehearse the lesson before I give it, even though I've been teaching for years and years and years and years and years. He was like, it's important to me to always know I'm prepared. And that also, I think, is always a good reminder to me too. Like a lot of people have very natural aptitude in many different things, but even when they're up on the big stage, like they have prepared. People have taken the time to think through it. It's not just like this magic talent that people have. There's a lot of practice, a lot of learning, a lot of trial and error behind almost everything that we see as success. And so give yourself the time to learn it and to practice it and to get good at it.
Definitely. I think that's so important and so great. So Monica, I'm going to finish off with 2 fun questions. So first, what is a passion or hobby that you have that's completely unrelated to your work?
I have a ton. Like I said, I really love astronomy. I just love kind of, things that get to open up my mind and take me out of like the work zone all the time. But I think what I've recognized through this whole shelter in place situation is the power of play. I mean, I have to now homeschool 3 children as I'm working, and they need me in a lot of different ways. But one of them, especially with the youngest one, is just to go out and like sword fight on the patio while he has a little break. And so I've had to kind of structure these breaks around making sure that I'm out there. He doesn't have his friends anymore to do the creative play and to go on these wild, imaginative journeys that they take in their little heads when they're that age. And so I've had to step into that role. And, I've always enjoyed playing and just kind of understanding things. But to truly play throughout the day, I think it's just made work so much better for me. It's allowed me to think differently. It's kind of taken my mind off of work long enough that when I step back into it, I'm like, oh, now I have the answer or the solution. Where sometimes when you're thinking so hard about something for so long, you can't see it. So I just, I'm going to miss that when we all go back to work. I think it's a really powerful thing for even grown-ups to recognize that power of just getting your brain into a different space, playing, letting it go, interacting with someone on a kind of a fun, goofy level has been a lot of fun. So that right now is really the passion that I'm feeling is like bringing play into what we can do, not just in our human interactions, but the way that we learn is important as well.
Yeah,
so
I think it helps for a lot of, like you said, like mental well-being and all that, but also productivity and really work-wise as well. It can help. So I think that's great. So, okay, final question is, what is a fun or weird talent that you have that no one else really knows about? So I'm going to go first.
Yay, that's a fun one.
So blueberry throwing and catching is my talent. So I'm going to give you a little preview that I've done for all my episodes. All right.
Oh my God, it's amazing.
Okay, here we go. There we go.
Nice. Oh my gosh, I love it.
It's been years of practice, so I've perfected it now.
I can't think of like a super weird talent that I have. I used to be a gymnast. I was a very serious gymnast growing up, and I really loved it. And still, is like a woman who should not be doing gymnastics, I still love doing handstands and cartwheels. And again, like that notion of like being like kind of daring athletically, where I probably am too old to do it, and especially with my kids, I definitely bring all that in as well.
That's
but
so
that's
cool.
not something I would ever do at work. But it's still like, in my backyard, I still enjoy that.
I love it. How long did you do gymnastics for?
For a really long time. And ever since I was very little, I was just born very flexible and had a ton of energy. And I think my parents were like, okay, this seems like a really great fit. Go ahead.
Definitely.
And then was able to do that for most of my life. But I'm really tall. And so I think, like after puberty kind of reached the space where I'm like, I am like twice the size of all these other gymnasts, right? And so I started to recognize I probably didn't have like the right natural physique to do it, but absolutely loved the mechanics of it and really going through it and just sort of the body control it gives you. But I channeled a lot of that into track and field afterwards. So by the time I got to high school, I did a lot of high jump, hurdle, everything that just needed speed, agility, and sprinting. I love doing sprinting. And I still, to this day, I don't like to go for long jogs, but I love sprinting, jogging, sprinting, jogging, or sprinting, walking. It's like that adrenaline rush you get from sprinting is unparalleled. I absolutely love it. Like you can't breathe, you can't think. It's just like pure wind in your face adrenaline.
You can't breathe, but it's great.
I really like the short, sprinty, my body likes to jump and run and kind of do more of that kind of exercise. But I still try to bring that in as much as I can.
I love it. Well, Monica, this has been so fun, and I'm so happy you came onto the show just to share your knowledge and everything. So I appreciate it. So thank you so much.
Well, thank you so much. I appreciate it as well. Best of luck with everything. You have probably a gigantic open road in front of you right now, and it's just such a fun time in life. So enjoy it. Look out for all the cool adventures. Most of them end up being in your periphery somewhere, which is really funny, but
it's true. We'll see. We'll see where it takes me. But yes, thank you.
Good luck.